Welcome to the Business Women Australia Podcast Show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax. Let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Oh, I can't hear you.
I'm Lyn Hawkins, the Director and Founder of Business Women Australia. Kerrie, can you hear me?
I can now. I had a moment of silence which freaked me out a tad.
Especially coming from me. I'm streaming from this beautiful country of Bulu. Well, I'm in Perth, Bulu, which is the country of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and I'd really like to pay respects to elders past and present. I know for some of my friends, First Nations friends, this is a tough week for them, and you're in my heart. And I'm just, I'm really putting out intentions and manifesting, curiosity and in our history and our true history, and a lot of love and care and compassion in this time, which is very, very challenging for so many Australians. Kerrie, it's great to have you on the show. And we're going to be delving into moving forward with optimism. And we were just having a chat as we were leading in to the show about, how to manifest optimism. But Kerrie's really going to give us so many amazing insights into how leaders can help their teams overcome overwhelm and break free from excuses and limiting thoughts. And it was quite uncanny because I actually had a little bit of overwhelm this morning. I could feel in my heart a little bit of sort of like I could feel my heart pumping really fast, almost like, whoa, this is quite overwhelming what's happening to me this morning. A few things didn't go quite right. And I was starting to think, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it happen. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on, because I'm interested to hear how other people, experience overwhelm. So if you are listening in, we're streaming live across Facebook, across LinkedIn and YouTube. And, of course, we really love having you guys post a comment. If you are listening, please do. And for those of you who are on catch-up, well done. We are obviously on your favourite channel. It could be Spotify, it could be iTunes. Business Women Australia Podcast Show is everywhere you would want us to be. So great to have Kerrie in this virtual studio today. And we'll be looking at, the critical role of trust in this sort of the ability to boost productivity and foster collaboration through optimism, and looking at measurable ROI. So the return on investment for these kinds of methodologies and frameworks and philosophies and cultures is really what Kerrie is renowned for, is making sure that whatever an organisation invests in with their people, that they're going to get that return. So looking at some practical strategies, we'll be able to pick the brains of this fabulous Kerrie Nobes. So whether you're a leader, a people and culture professional, or a team manager, you're definitely in the right place. Now, Kerrie's the founder and the director of Kreating New Collaborations, or the founder and a consultant, really, a facilitator, a trainer, a coach. You're an executive and a team coach. You've got certifications in all those important things like personal and business coaching and training assessment. You're accredited in DISC and HBDI and the Roche Martin Emotional Capital analysis. So you've been working a long time with teams and helping them understand each other so that they can work better together and helping understand themselves. I know when we did our coaching together, Kerrie, we did the Herman Brain Dominance instrument, that tool, in terms of understanding how our brains work and how they function, so that we can understand how other people's brains work and how different they are, and how that really does change the way we impact and work together. So understanding self is something that Kerrie is very good at facilitating with, and she's sought for that kind of work. She's also not only a leading member of Business Women Australia, but she sits on our advisory board. So I am so grateful that you've taken time out to be with us here today, Kerrie.
Excited to be here and excited by the topic, because I think it is something that really touches all of us and really helps us from being, stopping that overwhelm and getting unstuck. And unfortunately, a lot of the work I do is helping people figure out why things aren't going the way they want them to, and helping them get unstuck.
Yeah, so optimism is, it's an interesting topic to choose, particularly at this time, I think, when the world is in so much change, and things are happening, and there's transformations going on at the political, at the organisation level, at the personal level that we may never have thought was going to happen. Why do you believe that optimism is such a critical component for leaders and for teams? Why is it something that you've really grasped hold of?
Well, I guess, Lyn, when I think about it, I was very involved in, and still are in creating safe learning spaces and safe workspaces. And when you go down that rabbit hole, which I've done of late, what you find is that it's this trust and optimism that creates safety or create a space for us to go. And you're quite right. Optimism is getting less. Trust is getting less. Like we used to just say, if I order something, I trust it's going to come. And now people are unsure, and there's so much uncertainty out there. So if we look at what optimism is, opt is to choose, and optimus is to look for the best outcome. So optimism is about us moving forward. And I've got on the wall behind me, because I want to read this, because this is a reason that the guy who developed and co-wrote the Emotional Capital Report, he says, optimism is a strategy to deal with difficulties and sense opportunities, to have a vision and foresight and emotional toughness to fight the gravitational pull of negativity despite challenges and setbacks. And you and I know, Lyn, that when people are in a space of overwhelm, or they're not sure in that uncertainty, that our brains are wired to go into protect mode, to look after us, and we shut down a little. So what optimism does for leaders and for their teams is to help them calm and look for the catalyst to move forward. And that's what it's about, finding what helps us move forward and knowing that we can overcome. And that overwhelm is often, feeling not trusted or distrusted. It's trusting others and distrust of us.
So that whole optimism and the feeling of being positive, even in those times of challenge, and being able to work through them, is so entwined then, what you're saying, with the concept of trust, of being able to trust and build spaces where trust is paramount in order to foster optimism.
Yeah. So I think trust, like when we think of trust, we think of other people. Often we sort of think of, do they trust me? Do I trust them? But it goes even deeper than that. It goes, do we trust ourselves? And we need to be able to do that to be able to look forward and see those opportunities. So if we don't trust that I can come on here and have a chat to you and that you've got my back and that I'm okay, then I get overwhelmed. But if I'm thinking about what I can do and not what I can't do, and building trust, and trust has those two components, right? It's our integrity and our intent, and that mutuality of wanting people to, looking for that win-win. And if it's not going to be a win-win, we can go, no deal. We're going to stick to our integrity. But there's a component in trust which is about our competence, our capability to move forward, and our capability to get results, to get it done, not just try. As Yoda says, there is no try, there is do or don't. It's about doing. And that's what optimism and trust do for us, is build a platform for us to say, I can. and to look at what I can rather than getting stuck in what I can't do.
So can leaders foster that optimism without appearing too out of touch with real challenges? I mean, it's different than being just sort of, head in the sky, isn't it?
That's a really good question, because I think what we have when we've got leaders who have, there are challenges in the organisation, and they're trying so often to protect their people. And so they try and take it on, or they try and say, and they lose some of the transparency by trying to protect. What it in fact does is sets us up for this fight or flight, because we're like, are they not trusting us with this? Am I not trustworthy? Do they care? And then we get into that spin. So for leaders to be able to foster that space, they need people to be able to speak their truths. They need to make time for people to actually say, well, this is my concern, and equally, this is what I'm really excited about. And having somebody listen and think that what you've got to say is worthy helps us take a breath and helps us fight back that fight, flight, or freeze response. And then we are free to innovate and to move forward. So Rob Masters, who's part of the Centre of Optimism, he says, optimism gives us the opportunity to have a crack. Take a crack at it, right? Be okay to make a mistake, to fail, but we try something different. If that doesn't work, we have another crack and we try something different until we find what we can do. And that's what leaders need to instill in themselves and others. And that comes from creating a space where we can breathe, where we can access our creativity and our moving forward, rather than freeze or fight or flight.
So, you've mentioned a few kind of frameworks and some of the tools that you utilise. Is there any sort of other specific sort of frameworks and approaches you'd recommend for building optimism?
Yeah. So in building optimism, it really comes down to our self-awareness. Self-awareness is really important. And you mentioned a few earlier, there are several different emotional intelligence assessments, some of those tied in with leadership, like the generalist leadership and emotional intelligence, learning how we think, learning how we behave, and more so, how does that impact others around us, and understanding why others are behaving or thinking in the way they are allows us to grab hold of things and move forward. So there are many tools, but a lot of it comes to let's learn about self so that we can help others. Communication, it will come up every time too. So having open communication, having real conversations. If we muck up, being able to say, hey, I'm sorry, that wasn't what my intent was. And it's really interesting for me because in the literature, it talks about the fact that we judge ourselves on our intent, right? But we judge others on their behaviour. And so it's so important for us to get a good understanding of what our fallback is, but also what others' behaviours are, what drives them, what are their thinking styles, what can we do to create that connection, because that's how we can lead most effectively, is in collaboration.
And out of that, I'm really getting this sense of the importance of curiosity. That's something that I'm really trying to work on myself, is rather than explain why I've done something and kind of, try and justify, what my behaviour was or my decision was on something, I've decided that if I'm getting some feedback from a team member or a family member or my husband, God forbid, rather than saying why I did it and what my intention really was and almost repeating where I was coming from, I'm trying to get into this habit of stopping and being curious about what they thought I was saying or why they felt or why they're questioning it. What was it? If that wasn't my intention, how is it that they have interpreted what I was doing to be something that might be kind of a little bit of a surprise for me? So coming rather than from a position of protecting myself, I'm coming from that position of trying to generate a deeper understanding of them as well. It's really interesting when you start to learn more about yourself and delve into yourselves, you realise just how there are so many filters that are coming through from the words that leave your mouth and your intent that are going through into the receiver's brain, and the stories that might be adding to whatever it is of the words that you've said to them, their own perspective, their life experience, what they might be assuming you're coming from, all these other things that are a noise in that delivery of communication. And it's no wonder we have so many miscommunications. Even after 30 years of being married, we still are, having to check in with each other. Is what you really meant this? Or, why did you respond to my suggestion from that point of view? And then getting an idea of why they have been a little bit sort of prickly when I've said something, or so interesting about that. And then coming to team, bringing it into the team environment, all those kinds of tools, that you bring to the table to help us understand, ourselves, whether it's our brain, whether it's our personality, whether it's our emotional intelligence, all that then makes us realize how important it is to have that diversity in the team, and the realization that I can't be everything, how important it is to have those different brains, those different perspectives, those different life experiences. And it's not just about the tools and the talent pick. It's about how diverse they are, in the way that they look at something, or culturally, how that has impacted on, the shape of the world. And that brings so much more rich and deep understandings and ideas and innovations to the team environment, where we're not sort of, it's my idea versus your idea. It's like, how can we create a new shape to something that's innovative by bringing of ourselves?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because every relationship is it's two people who have two different viewpoints, because none of us have the same upbringing, none of us have the same experience. And what we find is that when something happens to us, we look at it and we interpret it, right, from our viewpoint, from what my experience is. So something happens and I go, oh my gosh, well, this happened, and that means that this was because, and we start picking out experiences to really support our hypotheses, if you like. And often it's not the reality at all. And so this is where team is so fantastic. As you said, you've got so many different viewpoints. And if we try not to shoulder that ourselves and to say, well, this was what I was thinking is happening here, what else could be true? That's one of my favourite things. What else could be true here? We can stop making the assumptions and using our confirmation bias of looking for something to support what's going on for me. And that's part of building optimism, is being able to isolate a situation and deal with that situation or that emotional response to a situation, and know that both the setback and the emotion, both of them are temporary. They're there and they're one. But what happens is we start stacking them and something happens and we go, oh, and that, and we cherry pick all of the problems that lead that story. So we have to be able to stop, and the power of the pause of saying, all right, what else could be happening here? And who else has some insight here? And opening it up and inviting others to share their view. And that's how we grow, because we get other people's input and not just our past experience that brings us to that particular point.
Yes, it's really exciting when I hear you talking like that. It just makes me want to get a team in the room together, and or whether it's virtually, whatever, just to start, those brainstorming sessions, those innovative sessions, those problem solving sessions as a group can be so powerful. And so often in busy days when you've got this sort of pressure of time. I know for me, I'll go and try and solve a problem without bringing the team together to problem solve it. And then it would have been so much better if I'd brought everyone to the table. Now, we talk about return on investment. I know that's something that's very close to your heart because you're dealing with, a lot of executives and heads of departments that have a budget. A lot of learning and development budgets are being shaved. I mean, I'm horrified to hear of what's going on, at the moment in the US with all the diversity and inclusion programs and those development training programs and all those things that help understand and harness the power of diversity and the power of collaboration. I'm just interested because I know that when times are tough and organisations are struggling, quite often it is these kinds of programs that will get cancelled. So what is the return on investment in learning and developing these critical kind of issues that we think are critical from a human perspective?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, there's the Columbia University in the States, in their business school, they talk about distrust making you double the cost of you're doing what you're doing. So we think about it. If we distrust and we're not in a group that we feel worthy and that we feel that we're contributing, if we have those walls up, then it takes us longer. So you ask me to do something. If I don't trust you, Lyn, then I go, and I start assessing why you've asked me to do that. And I think, what's your motive? Do you care what I'm doing? Are you thinking about that for, and I have a whole different inner speak going. And that causes me to push back. It causes me to procrastinate. It causes me to not ask questions if I need more information to do whatever it is you've asked me to do. Then you flip that. And if we've got trust and I can say, right, I really want to come through for Lyn, and then I go, oh, I need this. Then I come to you and I say, hey, I need this so I can do ABC. And then we're starting to move forward. And that's part of this trust and optimism, that I know that I can come and have those conversations and we can move forward together. Other studies that have been out there, there was a hotel chain that looked at the expense and what the difference was when people trusted their manager versus hotels where they didn't. The difference was 2.5%, $250,000 a year per hotel for this hotel chain. They interviewed thousands and thousands of people. And what they found is if they were trusted, that they were all in and they were doing. But they didn't do that. They just did the minimum, or just, they just go into survival and don't engage. And the other big one for me was that when you look at feedback, and feedback is part of a team working together. So there was, I can't remember who did the data. If anyone wants to know, I can find it. But essentially they're saying that when they interviewed these people, employees, that they all said that if they got feedback from a trusted manager, that they could take it on and act, that their productivity rises exponentially. Given that, if we don't trust the person, we can give all the feedback we like, but nobody's listening. Nobody's, we're nodding, we're doing all the right things, but we are not open to taking on new information. So there's those costs, and then obviously there's all the big ticket. We get retention of people. We don't lose knowledge that goes out the door. We build a brand of caring and a culture. And they're the big ticket items, because that's what brings talent into an organisation and what keeps it in an organisation. So
absolutely. I mean, that cost of retention is something that I think a lot of organisations sort of fail to recognise, that by building these beautiful, safe work environments where there is trust and optimism, where there is the opportunity for people to experience autonomy and mastery of their skills and have the resources that they need to do the job. It can really it does affect that bottom line. So you've done a lot of research, you've done a lot of work with implementing these kinds of collaborative and transformative programs. Give us some examples of where Optimism's played a key role in those kinds of transformation kind of opportunities.
Okay. Let me think. I'll give you something from my past. So, several years ago now, I was part of a really high-performing sales team. We were getting, top of our game. We were getting great bonuses. We had a team that were totally cohesive, and this is what actually inspires me to do what I do, because it was such a great time in my existence. Then what happened was this organisation decided they wanted to trial a new area. And so they took myself and my immediate manager, and they took 4 people from the team and said, you're no longer there, you're here, and you're going to create this platform for us. So there was a lot of fear. There was, oh my gosh, I've just given up quite a healthy bonus because I've got no product to sell, because I'm just creating a platform and a customer base. And so there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of anger. And so my manager and I, we sort of, tried to push back up the chain, and we said, whoa, hang on a minute, don't people get a choice? And so we ended up finding out what the non-negotiables were in this instance. And it was one of those things. I was a field manager at the time. So what I did was spent time in people's cars, which is their office, right? And they used to have me in their office all day, once every 2 to 3 weeks. With this change and what we were being asked to do, I was going to be in their car once or twice a week. Huge. And so I think optimism came into play for me in that I have this group of people. With all of us, we can figure out how this works. We can get to the best outcome we can. So we sat down and we said, well, this is the non-negotiable. I'm going to be in your car. I'm going to be with you. What is negotiable is what we do. What are the opportunities that affords us? And so as a group, we then worked through what we could do for those days. And it was so funny because it was like, oh, you can scribe my calls. Absolutely, I can. I can share what other people are finding value. Absolutely. But we came up with gold because these people were people who were ready to be creative, to be successful, and to find a way forward. And that's where optimism comes in, because I could have thrown up my hands, and so could have they, and we could have all said, all too hard, and stepped away. But the fact that we could work through it as a team and have each other's back and support and trust that we would make it work, we made it work. And we were very successful in setting that up.
So that's a really beautiful example, that, and sort of brings to light then how to maintain an optimistic mindset. I know there've been times in my own life where I've felt, it's just not worth it, or it's all too much. I've had team members that have, seen so much change in their organisations that, it's just they're wondering if they want to be there. It's all too much. Another change, and it's like, oh God, So how do we foster in ourselves, and how do we foster in our teams this sort of sense of optimism?
Right. So for ourselves, when I think for myself and for others, I assume it would be a value as well. But I think you got to find your tribe. You've really got to connect to people around you. You need to be checking your mindset. Remember I said before, what else could be true? And really calling yourself up when you feel that you're going to this spiral. We need to make sure it's not all pervasive. So, it's temporary. What can I do? Rather than what can't I do, and getting into that negativity, because we want to be unstuck and we want to move forward. And the only way we can move forward is to get in charge of this instrument we have in our heads, which is our brain, which is wired to go to defense, to go to the negative first. So our brain goes friend or foe. It starts with foe because it protects itself. And so it's then about asking ourselves and looking for what is working. What am I, what am I got gratitude for? What are my strengths? And if we lean into our strengths actually give us confidence. It gives us effectiveness, but it gives us energy. And we need energy and well-being to maintain optimism.
And that kind of flips the switch, doesn't it? Spending that time on self and looking at, I love these, I've written them down. So finding your tribe is great, but looking at what else could be true so that you're not just focused on that limitation, those limiting thoughts. So it's all bad, it's all, I can't do this, I've had enough, all that self-limiting stuff. And shifting all these things into, you're talking about what is working, what have I got, what have I got control over, what information can I find out, how can I take this and be way more proactive so that I'm moving into that sort of, what are the possibilities that can actually make the situation better, or that I have some control over helping make it better, as opposed to the, God, I've had enough, woe is me. That's really powerful stuff there, Kerrie. Thank you. And on the other side, leaders balancing that need to quickly build trust and delivering results while maintaining the integrity of relationships is a real juggle from a leader's point of view. When you're leading and managing, that's really challenging.
Yeah, but for me, Lyn, for mine, they're one and the same. So if we are leaning into our people and building trust and building relationships of collaboration and worth, and we're not trying to protect our people and say, well, I'm going to help you or fix you or, sort this out by myself so I don't bother you. The message we send when we do that is, I don't believe you can do it, or that I'm better than you, or, and they're not intentional messages, but that's what it is. We hire people in to be in our team because they're capable and strong human beings with skills that we need. So if we as leaders can really think about what are my strengths as a leader, but also what is the strength around me, that is so valuable, and we don't have to protect. What we do need to be is transparent, not spinning what a problem is or trying to push them or pull them to come with us, but to get people engaged, because when they're engaged and they're involved, then they've got the will to start moving forward. And it comes down to, doing what we say we're going to do and being available for people to have conversations. All of those leadership skills set us up to help others.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a few little pitfalls that you've kind of mentioned in there that leaders need to avoid, and that is having the time, taking the time, not rushing, in delegating, giving them the chance to have a crack at something, building those opportunities to say it's okay to make a mistake, but what have we learned? Right? Is there a system? Is there a process? Is there a skill that we need to improve upon? Do we need to slow down? In this world, most of the mistakes that I'm seeing with the teams I'm working are because everyone's rushing.
Yeah.
And not getting an extra set of eyes on their reports or their comms or whatever it might be, and little things slipping through, or just slowing down. Again, it's that collaboration.
Yeah.
Are there any other sort of pitfalls that leaders can avoid that really spring to mind that you see us making often?
Yeah, I think change is a big one, because change is all around us all of the time. And we all come at change differently depending on our makeup. So some people embrace it and love a bit of chaos and and others are really fearful. And when we try and move people, and as they pull or push, then we get people who are going to push back, and who aren't going to take that extra mile, who aren't going to come in. They're going to actually close down and become survivors. Like, nobody intends to not work. It's how we're wired to go, I've got to protect myself here. And so we shut out what's there. So as I said, we need to, if something's not working, we need to be able to have a conversation about it. And just a conversation. I hear so regularly, I need some training on difficult conversations. And I feel like, to a degree, sometimes that's half the problem, is that we label them as a difficult conversation, when it should just be a conversation where I'm straightforward. I think that, I'm trying to think of this saying that I love. Say what you mean what you say it, and don't say it meanly. Just give people the benefit that you trust that they can have this conversation. And if there's a challenge there, then put it on the table and stop pushing it under the table. Let's just deal with it. And those things of speaking about the elephant in the room and being able to say, this is a challenge. What's going on here? Can we work at it? And it is about the trust. Do I trust that you care about my output and how I'm going to come out of this conversation? That's what people do. They weigh up when somebody asks them something. Do you care about me? Are you speaking sincerely? Are you reliable and accessible for me to get help if I need help? And are you competent to give me the skills that I need to do what you're asking me for? And it's really interesting, that will skill that people, they don't care. But essentially they care, but they may not feel that they're equipped to do something. And that's why we need this trust and optimism, that we're going to learn it. It's that growth mindset, right? It's all about what I can do. And if something goes astray, the resilience to be able to say, what's my learning here? What do I get from it? And what can I take to move me forward? And we all need it. And if we've got it, then we're so much more productive and joyful. And I want to put joyful in there, because so many times we talk about the output or the outcome and the results. The results are driven by people being joyful and getting satisfaction out of what they achieve. We all have achievement drive, and it's tapping into that and bringing it with us.
So much in there, and so many sort of descriptors of what is a wonderful and flourishing work environment that you've just described. If you can tick yes, to those questions that Kerrie was just posing, to, as a manager of people, as a leader within the team, whether you're supervising a team, or, if you've got an organization and you're the CEO or you're the chairman of the board, these are all relevant for, large teams and small, no matter where you are within your team environment. And leadership is not just the title either. It's that person in the room that is actually able to bring this kind of energy and focus and perspective, and to help create so that everyone goes on a learning journey of being optimistic and joyful and productive, and helping each other out and having each other's back.
Mm-hmm.
So, closing wisdom, Kerrie, it's been an incredible, it's been 40 minutes chatting with you, and it's flown by. I could sit and talk to you all day. I love hearing your wisdom and your insights. If there's one mindset shift or a strategy that you would like leaders to implement today to move forward with optimism and clarity, with trust, and to build joy and safe work environments, what would that be?
Learn about you. Self-awareness. It truly comes down to being aware of what I can do, what I can't do, and how I go about it. How do I want to show up? How do I want this to work? And looking in a mirror. One of the people who do a lot of work in this area talk about Stephen Covey Jr., and he talks about a mirror or a window. And he talks about looking in the mirror at what's my part in this. So when something goes astray, a leader should be looking in the mirror and saying, what could I have done better here to support my person, to give them skills, whatever it is that's been lacking that they haven't been able to do, what's my role in here? And by looking in and taking accountability and responsibility, we then allow somebody to grow, because we say, rightio, this didn't work. I need to know what you need, and to get curious, as you said, as opposed to looking out the window. When things go well, we should look out the window and say, who's contributed to this, and give them the recognition they need. But it all comes down to our self-awareness of how we keep our emotions in check. How do we keep ourselves consistent in our behaviour? And so I think the most valuable thing for any leader in this space is to ask yourself these two questions. Do I trust my people? Think through your team one by one. And if there's someone in there that there is unease or you don't trust, get curious, go figure out what's going on. And then, or at the same time, ask yourself, do my people trust me? And there's a lot of work that shows that we overestimate how people think about us. We think people that they trust us because our intent is to be trustworthy, but it's often not the case. Same thing with emotional intelligence. The more senior we get in a role, the data shows that the more we think we have emotional intelligence, because people say yes, but often we need some help. So be real, think about what you've got, what you need to build that, and then get yourself some strategies and some tools to help you. If you need help in that, then reach out to somebody who can do that for you, but learn about yourself first, and that way you get to be who you want to be, and you can drive others to have that trust and optimism that we can get the job done. And then you're going to get results. They're just so intertwined for me that there's no difference. We have to build the team and this group of people to want to move forward. And they need trust to be trusted, and they need optimism to get there.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. What a beautiful episode. Kerrie, we'll have to get you back on the show. There's so many things that bubbled up during this conversation that I'd love to explore further. For those of you who are listening, if you want to contact Kerrie Nobes, you will find her website, Kreating New Collaborations. She's on LinkedIn and she's on the Businesswomen Australia membership directory. So find Kerrie, reach out to her, have a chat to her about what's going on with your team, and get her involved with helping develop your team so that they are building optimism and are collaborating well and working well together and learning about themselves and each other. Kerrie, thanks for coming on the show. It's been so good to have you today.
Thanks so much, Lyn. I love to be able to share this topic, and look forward to, there's a mastermind on the 20th of February where Businesswomen Australia can come in, and we're just going to facilitate a discussion so that as a group we can share our experience in this space, because there's so much to learn from one another, and that makes me excited.
Absolutely. So for those of you who can join us on our interactive webinar where we can have a Q&A, we'll be doing breakout rooms, you'll be giving us some tips and tricks to work on. That's a real deep dive. So you'll find that on the Businesswomen Australia calendar. Subscribe to our e-news and you won't miss any of our events. Thanks for listening to our podcast. It's great to have you all here, and we will We will be sharing some more wisdom and some more expertise and insights from the leaders in the Business Women Australia community. Next, I think we've got another one in the next couple of weeks. We're aiming to do weekly. We're not quite there, but we're getting there. We're moving from monthly to at least every second week, every fortnight. Fantastic. So we'll hear from you and see you again soon. Thanks, Kerrie.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
You have been listening to the Business Women Australia podcast show. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and gained some valuable insights to empower you on your journey. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to stay updated in our latest episodes. And if you're not already a member of Business Women Australia, what are you waiting for? Head to our website today and join so that you can connect with a thriving community of inspiring women across Australia. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.